If you fellas have not heard the story about how the Tampa Bay Lightning was once owned by the Japanese Mafia, you gotta stop what you're doing, grab a cold one, grab a snack, and sit back and enjoy while I tell you what might just be the craziest story in sports history. Our story begins in 1989. Lanny McDonald and the Calgary Flames had just won the Stanley Cup and everything was pretty good around the league. But not quite good enough for Commissioner John Ziegler and the NHL's board of directors. See, the NHL had a little problem, and this problem was the possibility of rival pro hockey leagues like the WHA stealing a bit of shine from the NHL. They don't like that much. So the logical solution? Expand from the 21 teams they currently had to 28 teams over the next decade in an effort to curb competing leagues by securing key markets, enhancing revenue, and solidifying themselves as the one and only hockey league to watch. And so they did just that. They had a vote to expand, and expand they did. The very first new club came out of San Jose, the Sharks. And just a few years later, in 1992, the Tampa Bay Lightning was set to enter the NHL, and there was a bidding war brewing between two parties to see who would actually get to own and manage this new Florida hockey club. Group A was Jim Rutherford and Peter Karmanos, who at the time really seemed like the obvious choice simply due to their secure financial backing and just their general reputations. But Group B really wanted this franchise, and despite the fact that they had questionable financial backing to actually afford that $50 million franchise fee, these guys were prepared to do whatever it took to get the money to acquire this team. And who were these guys? The Esposito brothers. So the plan for them was to go out and find a rich guy with deep pockets who's down to put up that $50 million expansion fee and just enjoy the luxuries of being an owner while the Esposito bros pretty much do all the managing work, right? And right around this time is when they met a man named David Lefebvre. Now, David was this hotshot attorney out of New York who had a lot of connections, and he figured he could probably help the Esposito bros find the dude who's willing to put up the cash and essentially finance this operation. So the Esposito bros found it fitting to bring David in and see if he could get something going. See if he could find the next rich guy to put up this cash so they could get the team. So David goes out, he does his thing, he makes his calls, and he ends up coming back to the bros pretty quickly with some good news. And the news was that there's an interested individual in Japan who is this kind of mysterious billionaire figure. He's well connected with royal families in Japan. He owns a golf resorts company called Kakusai Green. This individual was rumored to have been a millionaire since the age of 21, and it seemed like whoever this person was, he just saw this as a great opportunity for an investment, which was perfect for the Esposito brothers because they weren't really looking for some hands-on, super involved guy. They just wanted a guy who was willing to put up the cash and treat this as an investment and let them run the ship. So obviously the brothers were stoked. They're like, this sounds great. Okay, what's his name? And David replies, Takashi Okubo. The brothers are like, okay, cool name, never heard of him, but he's got the cash, so fuck it, let's arrange a meeting, let's set this up. So David does just that. He arranges a meeting at a nightclub in Tokyo. So the Esposito brothers and David, they hop on a plane and off to Tokyo they were to hopefully secure this investor. When they land in Tokyo, they head straight down to the nightclub and they're escorted up to this area above the club, which is kind of looking down over everybody dancing. And they're just kind of chilling on this couch, enjoying themselves, waiting for this mysterious Okubo figure to walk in the room. When all of a sudden, the door opens, a man walks into the room. He introduces himself as Mr. Okubo's representative, who will be handling the negotiations on behalf of Mr. Okubo. And so the Esposito brothers hear this, and they kind of look at each other like, oh, okay, so Mr. Okubo won't be attending the meeting then? And Okubo's representative would reply, yep, that's correct. You know, they kind of thought that was a little strange considering this was a large investment and, you know, they assumed Mr. Okubo would want to meet the men who were going to be responsible for his investment and his money. But, you know, who knows? Maybe this guy was just so rich that he didn't really care that much, and he obviously trusted this other guy, his representative, to handle it for him. So whatever. The meeting goes down, it goes well, they agree on the deal, and so by the end of the meeting, the Esposito brothers had now secured their funding. Mr. Okubo is about to have his new investment in this team, and everybody's happy. So the Esposito bros and David hop back on a flight. They get back to Tampa. They call up the NHL commissioner, and they let him know, hey, we've got the funding secured through this Japanese investor. They lay out the plan. The NHL does zero due diligence into Mr. Okubo and what he's all about, because honestly, they don't really care. The $50 million is there. They can take the expansion fee. The Esposito bros got the plan, and now the Tampa Bay Lightning is theirs. Closed deal. So for a while, things were okay, but just a few years later, things were kind of getting weird and kind of going to shit. The team sucked. They were horribly mismanaged. They were losing millions of dollars. Arena deals were falling apart. And the owner was nowhere to be seen. And when I say nowhere to be seen, I mean he had never attended a game, never done an interview, never even met with the Esposito brothers or the NHL commissioner. Nobody had ever even seen a fucking picture of this guy. The only connection that people had to Okubo were the two high-level Japanese executives for the Lightning, of which Okubo appointed to kind of keep tabs on everything and act as a middleman between Okubo and the NHL. But even these guys didn't have any good answers. Everything at this point is just pretty much fucked. When all of a sudden, a lawsuit gets filed. So it turns out one of these arena deals that fell apart, it was an arena deal that they were trying to arrange through developer Mark Gannis, and he files this lawsuit, which essentially contains Gannis accusing Okubo of being a, quote, gangster, stating that he would never work with a gangster. Now, obviously, when this news comes out, this would not be the greatest look for the NHL, allowing what might be a gangster to purchase one of your NHL clubs doesn't necessarily scream professionalism through the eyes of the public. So they did what they could to just kind of, keep this quiet, which, kind of worked for a little bit. But by 1998, the team was now over $100 million in debt, with a Japanese owner still nowhere to be seen, which ultimately led to massive speculation that this hockey team, to whoever this Okubo figure was really nothing more than a money laundering machine. And so later that year in 1998, Art Williams would actually end up buying the team for $100 million, and Mr. Okubo and all of his lore would vanish into the shadows like he never even existed. Today, we have no idea where Mr. Okubo is, if he really was a gangster, or if he even existed at all. But what we do know is that somebody from Japan put up that $50 million and owned the Lightning, but nobody ever met him. That is today's story. This was a total fuck around to put together, as there's very, very limited information regarding all of this, but I did my best to paint the picture best I could. The big question is, was this guy really a gangster? He could have been, but if he really was, nobody has proof of it. It's just as likely that he was a billionaire who just didn't give a shit about the team because he was so rich, or maybe it really was a money laundering machine. We don't know, and we'll probably never know. But I am curious to hear what you lovely fucking fellas think about it. If you enjoyed this story and you want to hear more crazy hockey stories that have never been told like this, hit that subscribe button, because if you don't do that, I don't keep making these. Thank you for watching, fellas, and let me know what you think about all of this in the comment section. I'm actually quite curious about this one.